Captain Forestier, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over both these combatants to see who would win more often not in a cross-verse situation, Supergirl versus Captain Marvel. If you guys are new to my channel, please leave a like, comment down below and of course subscribe for the content. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead, dive right in, give you guys a summary. I'm going to talk about Supergirl, then I'm going to move on and talk about Captain Marvel, and then near the end of the video, I'm going to give my thoughts on who I think wins more often than not in a cross-verse situation. So, starting off with Supergirl. In post-crisis, Supergirl demonstrates an impressive feat where she physically damages Superboy Prime and makes him bleed. This is impressive because Superboy Prime has demonstrated feats such as body slamming Ion Amp Sodom Yacht. Superboy Prime scraps with the Green Lantern Corps and bullies a lot of the Green Lanterns with relative ease. Superboy has feats of being able to clap back and launch back the Flash family in combat. He's fought against both post and pre-crisis Superman. He's also taken a lightning laced punch from Black Adam. Then he proceeds to smack Black Adam away. All these feats that I've mentioned, Supergirl would scale to, if not downscale to. Very impressive. Supergirl also has a feat where she fights Superboy. Supergirl also overpowers Superboy's heat vision and punches his jaw, dislocating it in the process. Supergirl herself is able to go toe-to-toe against Power Girl and clashes with her evenly. And there's also a statement from Batman where he theorizes that Supergirl rivals Superman and may even surpass him. Supergirl is also stated to be the most powerful girl on the planet. Now in New 52, Supergirl was able to overpower and punch Wonder Woman in her face, causing her to bleed. Wonder Woman notes that they're pretty relative. Supergirl was even able to break out of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth too. Supergirl was also able to batter Cyborg Superman with relative ease, and that's going to pretty much round up New 52. Moving on to Rebirth Supergirl. In Supergirl Annual 1, Supergirl undergoes surgery to stabilize her cells, which are supercharged permanently, and her powers are more amplified than normal, and she is even stronger than ever. She now has better control over her powers with this new amp, and essentially she's more powerful in Rebirth now. So she has some pretty cool feats. She was able to completely body slam Solomon Grundy with this amp. Supergirl demonstrates that she's able to tank a blast from Cyborg Superman and ragdoll his robot arse all over the bloody place. This is very impressive because Cyborg Superman has a feat and statement from Superman stating that he is every bit as fast and strong as Superman, and Supergirl is able to clap him up. Very impressive. In Action Comics, issue 1026, during this comic, Supergirl fights a parasitic creature that absorbs the blows of your attacks. She fights alongside with Superman, and the creature takes Superman and Supergirl's attacks and even attacks them back, though it doesn't do a lot of damage. Supergirl is able to defeat the creature by just simply overpowering it and its absorbing capabilities, and pretty much makes it overload. This would also demonstrate that she downscales from Superman based off the feats that she has performed. Overall, Supergirl would range around anywhere from outerversal, high outerversal, boundless to even extraversal ranges. So if you haven't checked out my DC cosmology video, please check it out for more information, or check out my other DC videos too. Now, I'm going to go ahead, dive on and talk about speed. In post-crisis, Supergirl herself has her own direct irrelevant speed feat. After Supergirl and the Teen Titans laid the smackdown on Superboy Prime, Supergirl and Superboy flew all the way to the Source Wall and imprisoned Superboy Prime there. And as we all know, the Source Wall is at the edge of creation, which is a very impressive speed feat for Supergirl. Literally flew all the way from Earth to the Source Wall. That's a huge conceptual distance. Now moving on, she has some other speed feats too. Supergirl encountered a magic attack called the Mordru Globe, which BFRs people to the planet with a red sun that paranorls Supergirl. She outruns it for a bit until she flies to Comet, the horse, who literally runs so fast that they go beyond creation into the Overvoid. Supergirl herself was able to move inside the Overvoid, and for context, Supergirl was heavily weakened and nerfed due to being exposed to the red sun. Supergirl scales above the horse naturally. So anyway, that's going to wrap up Supergirl in terms of her stats. I'm going to go ahead and dive in and talk about some of her other abilities. As a Kryptonian, when exposed to yellow sunlight, Supergirl's powers activate and entail many unique powers and attributes she possesses. One of them is her heat vision. Supergirl has demonstrated some versatile showings with her heat vision, such as using X-ray vision to see a weak point inside her foe's head, and then demonstrates great concentration and pinpoint accuracy when she fires a heat vision to destroy the weak point. She can perform a widespread blast to tag multiple enemies, and she can fire off her heat vision on a microscopic level. She can even focus her heat vision to mount specific objects from a distance and disarm opponents. Supergirl has demonstrated to fire heat vision from her eyes and mouth, and she can also split her heat vision. Supergirl also gets supercharged and amped when she is exposed to sunlight, and especially when she takes a sun dip. which further increases her powers and also removes fatigue. Supergirl can tap into the power she absorbs from the sun. She can burn her opponents who grab her by increasing her own physical temperature and heat like the sun, and she can also flex this energy back at her opponents. Supergirl gains X-ray vision and microscopic vision, as she can see DNA, and her other powers come with sharp enhanced senses, as she can hear a person's heartbeat and determine their intentions by the sound it makes. So don't bother trying to lie to Supergirl. Her enhanced senses allow her to know what her opponent is trying to do, such as bluffing or attempting to use tactics against her, and the time when somebody tried to lie to Supergirl via the change in the rhythm of their heartbeat, she was able to literally just know that they were fibbing, and she told them to stop lying. So don't try it. And also, Supergirl can smell your endorphins as well, which is, I don't know whether that's perverted or unique. Supergirl is able to hear the people of Earth's fear zapping through people's synapses while she is all the way up in Argo City, and she also has the ability to fly, of course. She also has self-sustenance. As long as her powers are active, she does not require the need to eat or sleep. Supergirl doesn't need to breathe underwater either. Supergirl can survive in the vacuum of space and is resistant to its harsh temperatures. In dark places, Supergirl can even illuminate her own body. Supergirl can perform ice breath and blow a gust of wind to push back her opponents. Supergirl is able to emit a frequency that deafens the adaptive cells that were adapting to her and imprisoning her, and she literally bursts right out of it, which is absolutely unique and insane. Supergirl has energy absorption. She absorbs an energy blast on a physical and spiritual level. She can tell which type of energy she's absorbing. A Tamaranian energy can interact and affect the soul. Supergirl also knows how to defeat these types of creatures by overloading them with energy, as she can absorb energy via skin contact also. Supergirl has invulnerability thanks to her Kryptonian powers. She also has the special costume, which can absorb, reserve and store energy, and also a kryptonite suit to protect her and give her some resistance to the effects of kryptonite. Supergirl can determine how much energy she has left, and Supergirl's suit is indestructible and is the perfect costume for going into outer space, and it also offers protection in harsh environments too. Now Supergirl may be more brutal than her cousin Superman, but she clearly demonstrates that she has the intellect and tactical knowledge and skills in combat situations. In her fight against Cyborg Superman, Supergirl creates a tornado around some falling glass to redirect it at Cyborg Superman to cause some damage. Supergirl deduces a way to defeat Empress Emerald, who was blasting Supergirl with magic while in combat, and Supergirl comes out on top by getting around the weakness and then proceeds to rip the eye apart. Very impressive. Supergirl knows Turquoise and Rao and skillfully beats up a group of goons. She even shows dirty tactics in combat, such as poking her opponent's eyeballs. Supergirl demonstrates more tactics in combat. She punches the ground, causing the ground to erupt from underground, blasting hot lava which melts her opponent, who is made of crystal, and then Supergirl uses super breath to freeze the whole area. Supergirl also has shown to perform giant area of effect attacks by pushing back her opponents, and has shown to use thunderclaps too. Supergirl has shown weapon improvisation, such as using an opponent's weapon on them or using their own guns. If an enemy proves to be too troublesome, just like Clark, Supergirl will resort to BFR tactics, such as blitzing her opponent and flying them off into space or throwing them into the sun. Now, let's talk resistances and endurances. Supergirl was able to resist and survive inside the Overvoid. Concepts would cease to be if they would enter inside this fundamental realm. Absolutely insane. Black Banshee could not absorb Supergirl's soul, and Supergirl was able to take a magical and soul-based attack from Banshee's father, which is absolutely insane. Supergirl resists the effects of the lasso of truth and creates a small area of effect, hurting and pushing back Wonder Woman. We've seen a depowered Supergirl being able to keep going despite being poisoned, and on another occasion she was depowered by the Red Sun and still endured arrow strikes. Bones' cyanide touch does absolutely nothing to Supergirl, Supergirl has endured and taken magic attacks and also fights on despite being debilitated by kryptonite gases. She also fights out of kryptonite hallucinations. Lastly, another impressive feat was when Supergirl used the sun to revive herself after taking off the Red Lantern ring. Okay, so that's going to round up all of Supergirl. I'm going to go ahead, move on, talk about what Captain Marvel brings to the table. Now, in order to determine where Carol would scale, I must address her oppressive feats. She has fought against King Thor and was able to physically hurt King Thor and make him exert more power in the fight. She was able to absorb his lightning, which helped her even out the gap by powering up into a binary to put her in the respective ballpark of Thor and use that exact energy to pretty much take him out. Captain Marvel and Wonder Man have some pretty interesting history. In fact, they fought each other before. It's been demonstrated that Carol is capable of taking attacks and physically hurting and sending a mind-controlled and bloodlusted Wonder Man flying into next week. Wonder Man has been stated by Captain America to be Sentry level. This would more so be referring to the Sentry that fought Green Scar Hulk. Carol was able to also physically hurt a pissed off Sentry with one punch. However, keep in mind, both Wonder Man and Carol do not fully scale to Sentry, but I still mention like these feats just to show that they're definitely in that ballpark, like in that realm of AP. So, you know, their AP is not to scoff at. And we literally see Carol also fight Wonder Man again later on in the comics for the second time. She was able to take and endure an ionic attack from Wonder Man. Now, there's also more additional context to that fight too. Now, Carol was trying to help a pissed off Wonder Man and she was trying to reason with him. But nonetheless, they still perform one final clash, and unfortunately, Carol comes up a little short. But this is still impressive for Carol. Wonder Man himself was also stated at one point to be one of the strongest members out of the Avengers team. So this is some really good Herald tier scaling for Wonder Man and Captain Marvel altogether. So some really good scaling. Moving on, I want to go more in depth with Thor, and there's a lot of context, as I mentioned before, with Captain Marvel fighting King Thor. Thor himself has to like exert a little bit more in the fight back then. Current Thor would pretty much one-shot Carol, but back then, like, Thor was definitely a lot weaker compared to his current self. So King Thor, like even like weaker Thors, how they've shown like feats. For example, like Thor himself, he was able to literally push Yggdrasil and the World Engine. Thor forced it all back at the end, and the feat did indeed cause him a lot of pain. And characters like Enchantress stated that all of existence owes Thor. Yggdrasil is everything. It has its roots and branches in all that is. It connects all life, the birth of life. Mythologies and religions coincide with science that all life came from one source, be it single cell life or the body of a giant, a cosmic egg, or an explosion. The tree is impossibly fast. Its span is beyond all measure, mortal or divine. In some places, it exists only as a concept. The world tree encompasses realms such as the dimension of manifestation and the superflow. Speaking of the dimension of manifestation, my friend Korin made an in-depth video explaining the 1S scaling for the dimension of manifestation. So if you folks would like to get a full analysis on that video and just to understand how the realm works and how big it is, I'll leave a link in the description. But literally, like, just like a weakened Thor who was like in pain was already performing extraversal feats while weakened. So Captain Marvel, even fighting this version of Thor, like obviously King Thor, would be a lot more stronger. Like, that's easily extraversal scaling for Captain Marvel, so she's got upgraded. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on and talk about Captain Marvel's speed, and then I'm going to talk about some of the other stuff that she brings to the table, and I'm going to give my final thoughts. So in terms of speed, Carol should range from the low ends of MFTL plus to infinite speed to immeasurable speeds and irrelevant speed. As noted above, Carol has kept pace and reacted to the likes of Thor. Thor himself has blitzed Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer has demonstrated some low-end impressive finite speed scaling. The Silver Surfer casually flew through 500,000 light years in a short time frame. He easily crossed galactic distances in a panel. Silver Surfer has crossed the universe in a short period of time on more than one occasion. These are finite speed feats if we lowball the size of the universe, but infinite if we go to the consistent infinitely large universe route. Another infinite speed feat also comes from Thor himself, where Thor was able to hear a prayer from a universe away. After hearing the prayer, Thor demonstrates that he is fast enough to cross the universe within a couple minutes. The universes in Marvel Comics, as mentioned, are infinitely large, which would mean Thor traveled an infinite distance in a finite amount of time. Thor has also demonstrated that he is able to blitz Silver Surfer, who can time travel with his raw speed alone. Now, as for the irrelevant speed scaling, Mjolnir is fast enough to travel to Earth from a point far beyond the multiverse in a few minutes. Thor can also react to the speed of his hammer too. Thor himself has moved inside Limbo. Limbo is a realm that is beyond all concepts of space and time. Captain Marvel herself has demonstrated that she's able to move inside this conceptual realm too, which is very impressive. Okay folks, let's move on to Captain Marvel's abilities, hacks, resistances and other cool stuff. So one of Carol's main bread and butter abilities is her energy absorption / energy nullification. Captain Marvel is well known for her ability to absorb anything energy based in nature, which amps her powers. When she absorbs enough energy, she can enter into a binary form. It's actually been demonstrated that her binary form can be activated without the need of absorbing energy firsthand, but it does increase her stats when she absorbs energy. Carol has also demonstrated that she is able to absorb reality warping energy from the Reality Stone. Carol can also absorb energy from the Phoenix Force. During her fight with Thor, Carol was able to easily absorb his lightning, and we've also seen Carol absorb kinetic energy attacks from physical punches. So overall, she can absorb many types of energies such as subatomic particles and radiation, lightning. She's also demonstrated to absorb magic and even assisted Doctor Strange with her absorbing powers to absorb magic too. She can absorb sound waves and ionic energy, which is impressive. When Carol absorbs electricity, it replenishes her body. Even while underwater, her body absorbs energy from other sources, which also fuels her. So moving on, some more impressive, noteworthy abilities for her binary form. We've seen that Carol essentially is near limitless when she's in this form, as she has a near limitless supply of energy while in binary. Carol in her binary form was able to absorb all energy around her and drew energy around the world for her to absorb. When Carol Danvers absorbs energy, she can release it back at her opponents 10 times more powerful than it originally was. Now moving on, her main use of her ability is her photon blasts, which she can channel into her fists or shoot them out from her hands. Her photon blasts also vaporize you on an atomic to subatomic level. Carol's photon blasts can also sterilize cellular structures, and she can also redirect the type of energy she absorbs from a specific attack. Carol has also demonstrated that her photon blasts can transmutate people into a crystal. She can also perform an area of effect with her photonic energy, and she can also create photonic shockwaves too. In Carol's recent comic, she demonstrates a new power where she is able to create a binary construct of herself, kind of like a spectrum, as she can manually control it and use it in combat. And she's also demonstrated to create like photon shields and constructs as well, which is also impressive. We've also seen Carol being able to fire a photon blast with pinpoint accuracy, and she can also fire photon lasers from her eyes too. Carol can also perform a solar flare to blind her opponents, and she can also use her energy to thaw out frozen lungs. Moving on, Carol has enhanced senses, instinctive reaction, and precognition. It's noted that Carol's precognition and cosmic awareness is better than Mar-Val's. Both have the same powers, and Mar-Val has demonstrated this, as it's a near impossibility to ambush him, and it greatly increases his fighting skill. And with it, he could see Thor's attack through 17,000 dimensional perception streams, and Carol's cosmic awareness is potent enough to sense changes occurring within the outside, which the outside itself is a high altiversal distance, which is absolutely insane. Carol was able to precog a goon who was going to shoot her from behind, and also she was able to precog a room going to explode, allowing her to stay steps ahead and escape before it actually blew up. Carol also fights like a Kree warrior. Her style of fighting is to demolish her opponents before they can do anything, and she fights on raw instincts pretty much. Carol is proficient in judo, and she's also demonstrated that she's able to beat up a guy who had powers specifically designed to counter hers, despite her powers being out of control. And Carol is also knowledgeable on pressure point strikes and performs them on Sabretooth. Carol is no stranger to resorting to dirty tactics in combat too. We've even seen Carol beat another version of herself. Carol has also shown this on another occasion where she beats Rogue, who had Carol's powers also. Moving on to resistances, Captain Marvel was able to resist the penance stare, which uses your sins against you, turning your mind, body and soul to ash. We've also seen Carol being able to resist Hellfire, which completely burns your soul down. Carol has also demonstrated to resist being possessed by a Carnage symbiote and vaporized her way out of it. We've also seen Carol resist and push through Weakening Ray, which is more potent on female combatants. Carol has also resisted MODOK's mind control, and she's also neutralized hypnosis. Sedatives do not work on Carol. Carol is also bulletproof, and Carol also has her own healing factor, and even at one point her healing factor was that of Wolverine's, which is very impressive. Carol's body also draws on the energy that is stored in her body to keep her from freezing to death in harsh cold environments. Carol has tremendous endurance. We've seen Carol being able to push on and fight despite having a broken arm, and also see her endure being punched into next week. We've even seen her endure a deadly magic attack that was supposed to kill her in one attack. And lastly, let's talk a little bit about Carol's costume. She can manipulate the molecules of her costume to dress herself up, and she also has a scarf which she's used against the Absorbing Man to suffocate him. This is also an impressive tactical feat for Carol. We've also seen Carol use tactics in combat, such as utilizing the lightning strikes from Thor and Iron Man to power herself up to get the edge in AP. We've also seen her rip Tony's suit apart and leave him in space to suffocate. She's also overloaded Black Panther's suit by using a nearby electrical tower to shoot him in, to send a continuous amount of currents to the suit to overwhelm it. She will also look for openings, such as exploiting her friendship with She-Hulk to get her to drop her guard to drain electricity from She-Hulk's brain to incapacitate her. Okay, so that's going to round up both these combatants. I'm going to go ahead, give my thoughts on who I think wins more often than not in a crossverse situation. So, based off the feats that both Captain Marvel and Supergirl have shown over the years, it's pretty safe to say that it's quite contentious on where you would place them and if they're relative or not. Me personally, looking at Captain Marvel's AP feats, Supergirl's AP feats, you can make an argument for either side. Personally, I think they're pretty relative. It's very close, but in terms of AP, definitely think they're pretty relative. I think they both can lay the smackdown on each other. However, when we look at the speed category, I gotta give speed to Supergirl. The speed feats are just way too concrete, way too direct. She has better layers of immeasurable and irrelevant speed in comparison to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's speed feats are unfortunately a little bit unquantifiable and just kind of lacking. You have to really use other outside sources and upscale her from other characters like Silver Surfer, who can time travel with his raw speed alone, Thor, and some other characters. So when it comes to speed overall on Captain Marvel's side, I think she's just a little bit too slow for Supergirl. I think Supergirl takes speed very easily. She's a lot more faster than Captain Marvel. Now, when we look at other things such as hacks and abilities, they both can absorb energy. They have energy absorption. They both get amped when they take physical damage, and depending on how the flow of the fight goes, if Supergirl doesn't take out Captain Marvel quick enough, Captain Marvel could make this unfair in terms of AP, especially if she goes into binary form. And by the way, Captain Marvel can go into binary form anytime she wants, but based off in character, she doesn't start off in binary form. It's something that she uses when she starts to struggle. But due to the speed gap, I think Supergirl is going to be able to lay the smackdown on Captain Marvel. I think Captain Marvel will take a few hits, but ultimately, just due to the overwhelming side of just the speed, and she has the AP necessary to take down Supergirl, that'd be an issue. Now Supergirl, of course, she could pretty much counteract. You could make the argument she could counteract the binary form or the energy absorption stuff, because Supergirl also gets supercharged when she absorbs solar energy or any form of energy in general. So she can also get amped too, and Supergirl could level the playing field with AP. So I think AP is very much a tug of war at this point. but when it comes to speed, I think Supergirl would be able to apply her abilities a lot more better. She'd be able to apply her AP a lot more efficiently, her heat vision and other things. I think Kara would be able to absorb it, but if it comes to, when it comes to fisticuffs, I think Supergirl's just way too fast. And especially, Supergirl's pretty skilled as well, if you want to use that too. She knows Turquoise and Rao, so she's pretty skilled in those aspects. If it came down to skill, I think Supergirl would be able to embarrass Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's skill feats just aren't that great. So I'd say with at least mid, maybe even high difficulty, I gotta give this to Supergirl. I think this fight's very competitive, but unfortunately due to the massive speed gap and Supergirl just having far more concrete feats, far more direct, irrelevant speed feats in comparison to Captain Marvel, I think that just poses a very big issue for Captain Marvel, and she won't be able to apply a lot of her abilities very efficiently due to the speed gap. So I gotta give this to Supergirl. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and yeah, give me your thoughts on the comment section. It's been real. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.